Speaking in English is so easy. Anya always loved learning new things, but there was one thing she feared: speaking in English. She understood the words, she knew the grammar, but every time she tried to speak, she froze. What if I say something wrong? She thought. What if people laugh at me? So, she stayed silent. One evening, Anya was sitting alone in the park when she saw an old woman feeding birds. The woman smiled at her and said, "Hello. How are you?" Anya hesitated. She wanted to reply in English, but the words felt stuck in her throat. The old woman noticed her struggle and said gently, "Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak." Anya gathered her courage and replied, "I am fine." "And you?" The woman's smile grew wider. "See? You're already speaking." That small moment changed something in Anya. She realized she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to try. From that day on, she spoke English whenever she could. At first, she made mistakes. She mixed up words, forgot sentences, and sometimes felt embarrassed. But she remembered the old woman's advice. Just speak. She watched English movies, sang English songs, and even started writing a diary in English. Slowly, she became more confident. One day, a lost tourist approached her and asked for directions in English. Anya felt nervous, but she took a deep breath and spoke. "This road. Go straight, and then left." "Thank you," the tourist said with a smile. Anya couldn't believe it. She had helped someone using English. From that moment, she felt unstoppable. A few months later, she stood in front of her class, giving a speech in perfect English. As she finished, everyone clapped. She smiled and thought about the old woman in the park. She had been right all along. Speaking in English is so easy. You just have to start. This version tells the same inspiring story but from a girl's perspective. It also includes a new character, the old woman, to guide her. Sure. Here's the continuation of Anya's story. After her speech, Anya felt a new kind of confidence. She no longer avoided English conversations. She looked for them. One day, her school announced an international exchange program. Students from different countries would visit, and they needed volunteers to guide them. Anya hesitated. Could she really talk to native English speakers? Then she remembered the old woman's words. Just speak. She took a deep breath and signed up. On the first day of the program, Anya met a girl named Emily from Canada. "Hi, I'm Emily. What's your name?" Emily asked cheerfully. Anya's heart pounded, but she smiled and replied, "Hello, my name is Anya. Welcome to our school." Emily beamed. "Wow, your English is great." Anya couldn't believe it. She was actually having a conversation. Over the next few days, she and Emily became friends. They talked about their favorite movies, dreams, and cultures. Anya realized something important. English wasn't just a language, it was a bridge that connected people. At the end of the program, Emily hugged Anya and said, "Promise me you'll keep speaking English, okay?" Anya laughed. "I promise." After that, Anya started helping other students who were afraid to speak English. She told them about her journey, about the old woman in the park, and about her first conversation with Emily. One day, while walking in the same park, she saw a little boy struggling to read an English book. She sat beside him and said, "Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak." The boy looked up at her and smiled, just like she had smiled at the old woman all those months ago. Anya knew she had come full circle, and from that moment, she made it her mission to tell everyone, speaking in English is so easy. Just start, and you'll get better every day. This ending ties everything together beautifully. Anya not only grows, but also helps others, just like the old woman helped her. Sure. Here's the continuation of Anya's journey. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's journey continues. Anya's confidence in English kept growing. She started participating in school debates, writing short stories, and even helping her classmates improve their English. One day, her teacher made an announcement. "We are holding an English speech competition next month. The winner will represent our school in the national competition." Anya felt excited but nervous. She had never competed on such a big stage. Could she do it? That evening, she sat in the park, thinking. She saw the same old woman feeding birds. Anya smiled and walked up to her. "Hello, how are you?" she asked in perfect English. The old woman looked at her with surprise, then smiled. "You've improved so much." Anya nodded. "I'm not afraid anymore, and it's all because of your advice. Just speak." The woman chuckled. "So, what brings you here today?" Anya told her about the speech competition and her fears. The old woman listened carefully, then said, "Anya, what is the topic of your speech?" Anya hesitated. "Actually, I haven't decided yet." The woman's eyes twinkled. "Then why not tell your own story? Tell them how you learned that speaking in English is easy." Anya's heart raced. Could she really do that? Would people like her story? But deep down, she knew the answer. Yes. The big day. The auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and guests. Anya stepped onto the stage, took a deep breath, and began. "Hello, everyone. My name is Anya, and I am here to tell you a secret. Speaking in English is so easy." She told them about her fear, about the old woman in the park, about Emily, and about how she had helped a little boy the same way she was once helped. As she finished, the hall erupted in applause. Anya had done it. Later that day, the results were announced. Anya won first place. She was now going to represent her school in the national competition. As she walked home, she thought about how far she had come. She no longer feared English. It was now her strength. And she knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. This extension brings Anya's journey to a powerful conclusion, showing her transformation from a shy girl to a confident speaker and mentor. Sure, let's continue Anya's journey and see where it takes her next. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's next chapter. Winning the speech competition changed Anya's life. She was invited to represent her school at the National English Speaking Championship. It was a big event, with students from all over the country. As the competition day got closer, Anya practiced every day. She stood in front of the mirror, spoke to her friends, and even recorded herself to improve her pronunciation. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "What if you fail?" The night before the competition, she sat in the park, feeling nervous. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. "Why do you look so worried?" It was the old woman. Anya sighed. "I don't know if I can win this time. There will be so many talented people." The old woman smiled. "Winning is not the goal. Remember why you started. Just speak. Enjoy it." Anya nodded. She remembered her journey, the fear, the mistakes, the little victories. She wasn't doing this to win. She was doing this because she loved speaking English. The national championship. The competition was held in a huge auditorium. As Anya stepped onto the stage, she took a deep breath and smiled. She started her speech. "Once, I was afraid of speaking English. I thought people would laugh at me. But one day, someone told me a simple secret. Just speak. And that changed my life." She told her story with confidence and passion. The audience listened carefully, some even smiling as they related to her journey. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then, applause. Anya didn't know if she would win, but she felt like she had already succeeded. A new opportunity. After the event, a journalist approached Anya. "Your speech was inspiring. Would you like to share your story in a magazine interview? Anya's eyes widened. Really? Yes. Many students are afraid to speak English. Your story can help them. Anya felt her heart fill with joy. She had once been the girl who was too scared to speak, and now she was helping others find their voice. A few weeks later, her story was published in a national magazine. Soon, people from different cities reached out to her, thanking her for the inspiration. Some schools even invited her to speak to students. Anya had started as a shy girl afraid of making mistakes. But now she was a speaker, a motivator, and a role model, and she knew this was only the beginning of her journey. She smiled and whispered to herself, "Speaking in English is so easy. You just have to start." This chapter shows how Anya's confidence opens new doors for her, inspiring others along the way. Sure, let's take Anya's journey even further. Speaking in English is so easy, Anya's global dream. Anya's story was spreading. After her magazine interview, she received invitations from different schools to speak about her journey. She never imagined that one day she would be the person inspiring others. One day, she received an email from an international organization. "Dear Anya, we were deeply inspired by your story. We would love for you to join our Youth English Summit in London. Young speakers from different countries will share their experiences. Would you be interested?" Anya couldn't believe it. London? An international stage? She ran to tell her parents. "Should I go?" she asked, nervous. Her mother smiled. "Why not? You always say speaking English is easy. Now it's time to prove it to the world." Anya laughed. "You're right, I'll do it." Anya goes to London. It was her first time traveling alone to another country. She felt a little nervous at the airport, but as soon as she spoke in English to the immigration officer, she realized she had come so far. At the Youth English Summit, she met students from all over the world: Japan, Brazil, France, Nigeria, and many more. Everyone spoke English in different accents, but Anya understood one thing. It didn't matter how perfect your English was. What mattered was communication. When it was her turn to speak, she stood on the grand stage and smiled. "Hello, everyone. I'm Anya from India, and I want to tell you a secret. Speaking in English is so easy." She shared her journey, her struggles, and the advice that changed her life. Just speak. When she finished, the entire hall gave her a standing ovation. Some students even came up to her afterward. "Anya, your story gave me confidence," said a girl from China. "I used to be scared to speak English too, but now I will try," said a boy from Egypt. Anya realized something important that day. English was not just a language. It was a way to connect the world. A bright future. After the summit, Anya received more opportunities. She started an online platform where students could practice speaking English without fear. Thousands of students joined, sharing their stories and helping each other. One day, Anya got an email from the same old woman who had changed her life. "Dear Anya, I always knew you would do something great. You proved that words have power. Keep inspiring the world. Your friend from the park." Tears filled Anya's eyes. She had come full circle. From a girl afraid to speak to a global inspiration, her journey had just begun. And now, whenever someone asks her for advice, she smiles and says, "Speaking in English is so easy. You just have to start." This ending shows Anya reaching a global level while still staying true to her roots. Sure, let's take Anya's journey even further and see what happens next. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's next big step. Anya's online platform was growing fast. Students from different countries joined to practice speaking English without fear. She hosted live sessions, shared tips, and even invited guest speakers from around the world. One day, she received an unexpected invitation. Dear Hania, we are organizing the Global Youth Leadership Conference in New York, USA. We would love for you to be a guest speaker and share your journey. Let us know if you're interested. Hania stared at the email in shock. New York? A global leadership event? She had once been scared to speak in front of her own classmates. Now she was being invited to speak on an international stage. She took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, I would love to." Hania in New York City was breathtaking. Tall buildings, bright lights, and people from every corner of the world. As she walked through the streets, she realized something amazing. English had truly connected her to the world. At the conference, Hania met young leaders, entrepreneurs, and activists who were making a difference in their communities. When it was her turn to speak, she stood on stage in front of thousands of people and smiled. Hello, everyone. I am Hania, and today I want to share a simple truth with you. Speaking in English is so easy. She shared her journey, from the shy girl who was afraid to speak to the confident speaker she had become. She told them about the old woman in the park, the small moments that gave her confidence, and how one piece of advice, just speak, changed her life. By the end of her speech, people were cheering. Many students came up to her afterward. Your story is just like mine. I always feared speaking English, but now I feel ready to try, said a girl from South Korea. You prove that English is not about perfection, it's about connection, said a boy from Germany. Hania realized that this was more than just a speech. She was inspiring a new generation to overcome their fears and speak with confidence. A life-changing offer. After the conference, something unbelievable happened. A professor from a prestigious university approached her. A life-changing offer. After the conference, something unbelievable happened. A professor from a prestigious university approached her. Hania, have you ever thought about studying abroad? He asked. She shook her head. I never imagined it would be possible for me. The professor smiled. With your talent and passion, I believe you would be a great fit for our university. We offer scholarships for students like you. If you're interested, I'd love to help you apply. Hania's heart raced. Study in another country, at a top university? She thought about the little girl she used to be, the one who was afraid to speak. She had come so far, and now the world was opening up for her. She smiled and said, "Yes, I would love to apply." Hania's new dream. Hania returned home, excited about her future. She worked hard on her application and, after a few months, received the news. She had been accepted with a full scholarship. She packed her bags, hugged her family, and boarded a plane to a new adventure. As she looked out of the airplane window, she whispered to herself, "Speaking in English really is easy, and now I'm ready for the next chapter." This part of Hania's journey shows how confidence in English led her to global opportunities. Sure, let's continue Hania's journey as she begins her new adventure studying abroad. Speaking in English is so easy, Hania's university journey. Arriving in a new country was both exciting and overwhelming for Hania. The moment she stepped onto the university campus, she saw students from different cultures, speaking in English with different accents. At first, she felt nervous. Would she be able to keep up? Then she remembered her own advice. Just speak. She took a deep breath, walked up to a group of students, and introduced herself. Hi, I'm Hania from India. Nice to meet you. They smiled and welcomed her. From that moment, she realized everyone was learning, just like her. Challenges and growth. The first few weeks were tough. The classes were fast-paced, and some professors had strong accents that were hard to understand. But Hania didn't give up. She recorded lectures, took extra notes, and practiced with her new friends. Whenever she struggled, she reminded herself, I am here because I worked for this. I belong here. One day, her professor announced a public speaking competition at the university. The winner would get the chance to present at an international business summit. Anya's heart raced. Could she do it? She thought about her first speech in school, the national competition, and her talk in New York. She had come so far. I have to try, she told herself. The university speech competition. On the day of the competition, Anya stood in front of students from all over the world. She felt nervous, but as soon as she started speaking, the fear disappeared. English is not just a language, it's a bridge that connects us all. I used to be afraid of speaking, but I learned one simple truth. If you want to be confident, just speak. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. A few hours later, the results were announced. Anya won first place. She couldn't believe it. From a girl who once feared speaking English to a winner at an international university, this was proof that her journey was just beginning. A global future. After the competition, Anya received more invitations to speak at events and share her journey. She even started mentoring other international students who were struggling with English. One evening, as she sat by the window in her dorm room, she received a message from the old woman who had once given her advice. I always knew you would do something great. Keep inspiring the world. Tears filled Anya's eyes. She had come full circle. As she looked at the bright city lights, she whispered to herself, Speaking in English is so easy, and now I'm ready for the next adventure. This chapter shows Anya thriving at university, overcoming new challenges, and continuing to inspire others. Sure, let's explore Anya's journey after university and see where her passion for English and public speaking takes her next. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's global impact. After graduating from university with top honors, Anya had many options. Companies offered her jobs, universities invited her for further studies, and organizations wanted her as a speaker. But deep inside, she knew what she wanted to do. She wanted to help people overcome their fear of English, just like she did. One day, she sat down with her journal and wrote her new goal: create a platform where millions of people can learn to speak English with confidence. Starting her own company. Anya took a bold step and started her own online English learning platform, Just Speak. Inspired by the words that changed her life, she designed courses, created fun speaking challenges, and hosted live sessions where students from all over the world could practice speaking English together. Her platform went viral. Within a year, millions of people joined, from small villages in India to big cities in Europe. She received messages from students saying, Anya, because of your platform, I finally had the courage to speak English in my job interview, and I got the job. I used to be so shy, but now I can speak English confidently with my foreign classmates. Anya realized that her dream was no longer just about her. It was about helping the world find its voice. Becoming a global speaker. As her platform grew, Anya started receiving invitations to speak at major international events. One day, she got a special email. Dear Anya, we would like to invite you to be a keynote speaker at the United Nations Global Education Summit. Your story has inspired millions, and we would love for you to share it with the world. Anya couldn't believe it. The United Nations. On the day of the summit, she stood in front of world leaders, educators, and young learners from every continent. She took a deep breath and began. Once I was afraid to speak English. I thought people would judge me. But I discovered a simple truth. Speaking in English is easy if you just start. She shared her journey, from the scared little girl in the park to a global leader in education. As she finished, the entire hall gave her a standing ovation. After the event, a young girl from Africa came up to her and said, "Anya, you changed my life. Because of you, I believe I can speak English too." Anya smiled. She had once been that little girl, and now she was the one helping others find their confidence. Writing her own book. Inspired by her journey, Anya decided to write a book. She titled it, "Speaking in English is So Easy," and filled it with her experiences, practical tips, and stories of students who had transformed their lives through language. Her book became a bestseller, translated into multiple languages, and used in schools worldwide. One day, while signing books at an event, she saw someone familiar in the crowd. It was the old woman from the park, the one who had given her the advice that started it all. Anya walked up to her and said, "Thank you for changing my life." The woman smiled. "No, Anya, you changed your own life. I just helped you see your potential." Tears filled Anya's eyes. She had come full circle. A legacy of confidence. Years later, Anya's platform had helped over 100 million people learn to speak English with confidence. Schools, universities, and governments partnered with her to make learning English accessible to everyone. She traveled the world, giving speeches, writing books, and meeting students who had been inspired by her journey. One day, at a conference, a little boy nervously walked up to her. "Anya, I'm scared to speak English. What if I make mistakes?" Anya smiled and said the same words that changed her life. "Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak." As the boy smiled, Anya knew her journey was never just about learning English. It was about giving others the confidence to chase their dreams. And with that, she continued her mission, knowing that she had truly made a difference in the world. The end, or just the beginning. Anya's story shows how one small step, overcoming the fear of speaking, can lead to endless opportunities. Absolutely. Let's continue Anya's journey and explore where her passion and mission take her next. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's global revolution. Anya's success with her platform, Just Speak, and her book, Speaking in English is So Easy, had already transformed the lives of millions. But Anya was not one to rest on her laurels. She had bigger dreams. One day, while speaking at an education conference in Tokyo, Anya had a moment of realization. She had helped individuals speak English with confidence, but she wanted to go further. She wanted to create a global movement that would not only empower people to speak English, but also embrace multilingualism and promote inclusivity in global communication. She began working with educators, tech developers, and social entrepreneurs to create a new initiative called Language for Change. Language for Change, a global mission. Anya's vision was simple. Language is a tool for empowerment, and learning any language, especially English, should be accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. The Language for Change program was launched with a mission to provide free, high-quality language learning resources to underserved communities across the world. Through partnerships with governments, NGOs, and private sectors, Anya's initiative focused on giving people the tools to not only speak English, but to use it as a bridge for career advancement, social development, and cultural exchange. The platform included free online courses, interactive and engaging lessons that made learning English fun and practical. Language exchange programs. Facilitating cultural exchange between students from different countries through online conversation partners. Inclusive materials. Educational resources that consider different learning styles, ages, and cultural backgrounds. The global impact of Language for Change. Soon, Language for Change was impacting millions of people. Schools in remote villages in Africa, Asia, and South America were using Anya's free platform to teach English to children who had never had access to proper education. In refugee camps, displaced children and adults were learning English to improve their job prospects and connect with others. In rural communities, women who once felt isolated because of language barriers were gaining the confidence to run businesses and take on leadership roles. Anya was invited to speak at the United Nations Education Summit once again, where she shared the incredible success stories from the Language for Change initiative. We are changing lives, not just by teaching a language, but by giving people the power to communicate, to connect, to grow, she said during her speech. When she finished, a young man from Syria approached her. Because of your program, I was able to communicate with international companies and now have a job. I never thought this would be possible for me. Tears filled Anya's eyes. She realized that what had started as a journey of personal growth had now turned into a movement that was helping people around the world build a better future. Anya's new dream. Anya didn't stop there. As she continued expanding her Language for Change initiative, she started to see opportunities for even greater impact. One day, she was having a conversation with a group of young women leaders from around the world when an idea struck her. What if we could build a global community of change makers who use language to solve global challenges like poverty, inequality, and climate change? The idea blossomed into a new dream, a global Language for Change summit where young leaders from every corner of the world could come together to discuss how language learning could be used to break down barriers, create connections, and empower individuals. The first Global Language for Change Summit was held in Paris, with thousands of young people, educators, policymakers, and business leaders attending. They discussed the importance of multilingualism in fostering collaboration and innovation, and how learning different languages, especially English, could be key to solving global problems. Anya stood on stage and spoke to the crowd. Language is not just words on a page, it's a tool we can use to change the world. And today, I am proud to stand with you all as we create a future where language empowers us all to make a difference. A new chapter. Anya's vision and passion were transforming the way people viewed language. It wasn't just about speaking, it was about connection, empowerment, and creating opportunities for change. As Anya walked off the stage at the summit, she received a message on her phone. It was from a young woman she had met years ago in a refugee camp. Anya, because of you, I now have the confidence to speak at a conference in my own country. I'm going to speak about the importance of education for girls. Anya smiled, feeling her heart swell with pride. This is what it's all about, she whispered to herself. Speaking in English is easy, but empowering others to speak, that's the true power. And so, Anya's journey continued, as she not only helped people learn English, but also helped them create the future they dreamed of. Her journey had begun with a simple lesson, but it had grown into a global revolution, one where language was the key to change. This continuation takes Anya's journey into a broader global impact, where she not only empowers people to speak English, but helps them use it to drive positive change in the world. Absolutely. Let's continue to explore how Anya's movement grows and how her impact continues to expand globally. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's global movement for change. As Anya's Language for Change initiative spread, it continued to evolve into a global movement. She traveled from continent to continent, meeting world leaders, innovators, and educators who were passionate about transforming their communities through language. Anya had always believed that language was more than just a means of communication. It was a tool for cultural exchange, social justice, and personal empowerment. And now, she was seeing her vision come to life on a scale she had never imagined. The Language for Change Institute. One evening, after a conference in Cape Town, South Africa, Anya sat with a group of educators who had been using her platform to teach English to underserved communities. They had a bold idea. What if we could create a global institute that would train teachers and leaders in the most effective ways to teach English while emphasizing cultural understanding and inclusivity? Anya's eyes lit up. This was exactly what she had always wanted. She immediately began working with a network of educators, linguists, and social entrepreneurs to establish the Language for Change Institute. The institute would not only offer teacher training programs, but also provide certifications for global educators and activists who wanted to use language to break barriers. It would host global events and workshops that focused on intercultural communication, promoting global literacy, and helping educators in underdeveloped countries get the tools and resources they needed. Within a year, the Institute opened branches in major cities across 5 continents. The Language for Change Institute became a beacon of hope for thousands of teachers and students, all united by the belief that language could change the world. Anya's role as a global leader. As the Institute grew, Anya's role expanded beyond what she had initially imagined. She was no longer just a speaker or an educator. She had become a global ambassador for inclusive education. Her work was recognized by governments, nonprofits, and international organizations as she advocated for language policies that would make learning English and other languages more accessible to marginalized communities. One day, Anya received a message from the World Economic Forum inviting her to speak at their annual summit in Davos, Switzerland. They were hosting a panel discussion on the future of global education and the role of language in driving equality. Anya took a deep breath before accepting the invitation. This was another huge step in her journey, and she knew it was time to share her vision with an even broader audience. Anya, at the World Economic Forum, the day of the summit, arrived. Anya stood backstage at the massive conference hall in Davos, surrounded by business leaders, policymakers, and international experts. She felt a familiar sense of nervousness, but instead of fear, it was excitement. She had once been the shy girl afraid to speak in front of a class, and now she was about to speak to some of the world's most influential leaders. When it was her turn, she walked onto the stage, looking out at the sea of faces. "Good morning, everyone," she began with a smile. "I'm Anya, and I'm here to talk to you about something simple but powerful: language." She shared her journey from the girl who feared English to the founder of a global initiative helping millions. She talked about how the ability to speak a language, especially English, was not just about education, it was about empowerment, equality, and opportunity. "We often see language as a barrier, but I believe it's a bridge," Anya said, her voice steady and clear. "A bridge to better job opportunities, to education, to cultural understanding, and to peace. If we invest in language, we invest in the future of humanity." Her words resonated with the audience, and by the end of the session, she received a standing ovation. Afterward, a business leader approached her. "Anya, your perspective on language and its potential is revolutionary. We're working on a new global initiative that focuses on education and poverty alleviation. Would you be interested in partnering with us to expand your vision?" Anya's heart skipped a beat. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she needed to take her mission to the next level. Anya's partnership with global organizations. Thanks to the success of her speech at the World Economic Forum, Anya's Language for Change initiative caught the attention of major global organizations, including the United Nations, World Bank, and the International Red Cross. They recognized the importance of education and language in tackling issues like poverty, inequality, and displacement. Together, they launched a new project aimed at providing language education to displaced persons, refugees, migrants, and people in conflict zones who had limited access to education. The initiative focused on giving these individuals the ability to speak English and other languages, helping them integrate into their new communities and find work. Anya traveled to refugee camps in places like Lebanon, Jordan, and Greece, where she met students who were learning English with the hope of rebuilding their lives. One day, a young woman from Syria told her, "I was scared to learn a new language, but now I know it will help me find a job and help my family. I'm not just surviving, I'm building a future." This was exactly why Anya did what she did, to give people the tools to build a future. Anya's personal life and legacy. As Anya's movement continued to grow, she started to reflect on her personal life. She had traveled the world, met incredible people, and changed millions of lives. Yet, she knew there was still so much to do. One evening, sitting on the balcony of her apartment in New York City, Anya thought about how far she had come. She thought about the old woman who had given her the simple advice, "Just speak." She realized that her mission had grown far beyond just speaking English. It was about giving others the power to speak their truth, to break down barriers, and to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Her Language for Change initiative had transformed from a small idea into a global revolution, and Anya had become a symbol of how language can change the world. As she looked out at the city skyline, she whispered to herself, "The world is speaking now, and we are listening." The end? Or perhaps it's just the beginning. Anya's journey continues as the movement she created spreads even further, transforming the lives of people from every corner of the globe. Her story reminds us that no matter where we start, our voices have the power to change the world. Absolutely. Let's continue Anya's story, focusing on her next major challenge and how her Language for Change movement evolves even further. Speaking in English is so easy, Anya's challenge and triumph. As Anya's Language for Change initiative continued to grow, she began to notice something. While the platform had empowered millions, there were still so many people left out. Many communities, especially in rural and isolated areas, still had limited access to the resources needed to learn English. Some areas lacked the basic infrastructure for online learning, and many people struggled with literacy in their own languages, making it harder for them to access education. Anya knew that if she wanted her mission to truly change the world, she had to reach even the most remote and underserved populations. But this wasn't going to be easy. The Remote Village Initiative Anya decided to take on a new, more challenging project, the Remote Village Initiative. The goal was simple but ambitious. Bring English education to the most isolated and underserved villages around the world, especially in parts of Africa, South Asia, and Latin America. These were places where people didn't have easy access to the internet or even the most basic educational resources. Anya partnered with local governments, nonprofits, and community leaders to create mobile learning centers. These centers would travel to remote villages, bringing along mobile devices, solar-powered chargers, and trained educators to teach English to people of all ages. The mobile centers would offer free, immersive language experiences where people could practice speaking and learning through games, storytelling, and conversations. The project started in rural India, in a small village that had no electricity or internet access. Anya visited the village herself, meeting with local leaders and families to explain the program. Many villagers were skeptical at first, unsure whether learning English would help them in their daily lives. But Anya was determined to show them how learning English could open new doors for their children and future generations. The first village, overcoming challenges. The first pilot village was small, with dirt roads and houses made of clay. Most of the villagers had never been outside their community, and the idea of learning a foreign language seemed unnecessary. But Anya had a plan. She began with the children, who were the most eager to learn. She brought with her a mobile classroom, a van equipped with solar panels, tablets loaded with educational content, and portable speakers for interactive lessons. The villagers were fascinated by the technology, and the children began to gather around the van, curious about what it had to offer. "We're here to help you learn English," Anya explained. "It might seem difficult at first, but trust me, once you start speaking, you'll realize how easy it is, and you can use it to build a better future for yourselves." The first lessons were challenging. Most of the children didn't have any exposure to English, and the older villagers were hesitant. But Anya and her team focused on practical, real-life applications of the language. They used local stories and songs, teaching vocabulary that was relevant to the community's life. Slowly, the children started speaking simple words and phrases. The villagers saw their children gaining confidence, and that sparked a shift in the community. The elders began to take notice, and soon, even the adults began to join the lessons. One evening, an elderly woman approached Anya after a lesson. "I didn't think learning English was possible for me," she said, "but now I see it's not too late. I want to be able to help my children with their studies." Anya smiled, realizing that the ripple effect was already starting. It wasn't just about learning English. It was about empowering people to see that change was possible no matter their age or background. Scaling the initiative, overcoming more barriers. As the success of the Remote Village initiative spread, Anya faced new challenges. How could she scale this model to reach even more remote places? How could she ensure sustainability so that these programs didn't just rely on donations and external funding? Anya and her team began collaborating with local businesses, governments, and international organizations to create a sustainable model. They trained local teachers to continue the lessons long after the mobile centers moved on. They also introduced peer-to-peer learning, where students who had mastered the basics of English could teach others in their community. This fostered a sense of ownership and pride in the project. But Anya's biggest breakthrough came when she realized that many of these villages had untapped resources. Women in the community were excellent at crafting, agriculture, and other skills, but many lacked the confidence to take their work to a larger market. She decided to incorporate a component into the program that taught practical English for business and entrepreneurship. This new focus on entrepreneurial English allowed the villagers to learn how to promote their products, pitch ideas, and communicate with larger markets. Slowly but surely, small businesses began to thrive, and many villagers who had once struggled to make a living started seeing tangible results. One of the success stories came from a woman named Anita from a village in India. After taking part in the Mobile Learning Center's program, she was able to learn enough English to sell her handmade textiles online, opening a small business that reached global customers. Her success inspired other women in the village to do the same. The global ripple, Anya's recognition and impact. With the success of the Remote Village initiative, Anya's Language for Change movement began to receive even greater recognition. Her model was not just transforming lives in remote villages, it was changing the narrative about language as a tool for social and economic empowerment. Anya was invited to speak at the G20 summit, where she shared the story of how a simple language learning initiative had helped lift people out of poverty, foster community growth, and empower women. She spoke passionately about how language education should be seen as a global human right, not just a privilege for the few. Her initiative gained widespread support, with governments and organizations pledging to work together to make language learning more accessible for underserved populations. Anya's personal growth and legacy. As her mission expanded globally, Anya found herself reflecting on her own growth. She had once been the shy, uncertain girl in a park who was afraid to speak English. Now, she was a global leader, using language to bridge gaps and create opportunities for millions. Despite all the success, Anya remained grounded. She never lost sight of the simple lesson that had started it all. Just speak. That advice had unlocked the doors to a brighter future, not just for her, but for so many others. And it was this message of hope and possibility that Anya continued to share. Language has the power to transform lives. One evening, as she looked out at the horizon from her office window in New York City, Anya thought about all the people who had come into her life: teachers, students, community leaders, and entrepreneurs. This was a global movement now, one that was constantly evolving. She smiled, knowing that the journey was far from over. "There's still so much more to do," she whispered, as the sun set on another successful day of changing the world, one word at a time. The end, for now. Anya's story is far from finished. As her mission grows, so does her vision. Her next challenge might be to build an entirely new platform for multilingual education or partner with tech giants to create innovative tools for language learning. Her journey proves that when you start with a simple belief and a willingness to speak, the world opens up in unimaginable ways. Absolutely. Let's continue with Ayanya's journey as she takes on new challenges and further expands her Language for Change movement, continuing to transform lives globally. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's vision for the future. Anya's work had touched millions, but as the years passed, she realized that the world was changing rapidly. Technology was evolving, global migration was increasing, and the demand for multilingual communication was becoming more pressing than ever. The need for language education was no longer limited to traditional classroom settings. It was now a dynamic, digital, and global necessity. Anya knew that if her Language for Change initiative was going to have a lasting impact, she needed to embrace technology and innovation in ways that could reach even more people and create a world where language was truly a tool for unity. The digital language revolution. Anya began developing the idea of a digital language revolution, a fully integrated platform that combined the best of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and gamification to create an immersive and engaging language learning experience. She partnered with top tech developers, language experts, and educators to create a smart learning system that adapted to each user's unique learning style. This system would not only teach English, but also help people learn other major global languages, enabling them to connect with people from different cultures, industries, and backgrounds. The new platform, called Languasphere, used cutting-edge AI to customize lessons, provide real-time feedback, and allow for virtual conversations with native speakers in immersive 3D environments. People could walk through streets of Paris, for example, interacting with locals in French, or enter a bustling marketplace in Beijing, practicing Mandarin with shopkeepers. Languasphere's impact, a global classroom. The launch of Languasphere was a game changer. In just 1 year, over 10 million people had signed up to learn various languages, from English to Spanish, French, Mandarin, and even lesser-known languages spoken by indigenous communities. The platform was particularly successful in refugee camps, isolated rural areas, and underserved communities. Ayanya had incorporated a free tier for those who couldn't afford to pay for lessons, ensuring that no one was left behind. Local governments, NGOs, and schools adopted Languasphere to teach languages in ways that were engaging and interactive, making learning feel like an adventure rather than a chore. In remote regions of Africa where internet access was still limited, offline versions of the platform were distributed on solar-powered tablets, enabling people to continue their lessons without relying on an internet connection. Anya's team received countless messages from grateful users around the world. One particular message came from a teacher in a village in rural Guatemala. "Before Languasphere, my students had no access to language education. Now, they're not only learning English, they're dreaming bigger, wanting to explore the world, and connecting with people they never thought they could." The Multilingual Leadership Program. As the Languasphere platform grew, Anya saw an even bigger need emerging: leadership training. In many communities, Especially in underserved areas, young people had the potential to become future leaders, but they lacked the confidence and communication skills to step into those roles. Anya decided to launch a multilingual leadership program as part of the Language for Change movement. The program would focus on teaching multilingual communication, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills to young people from around the world. The program was open to anyone aged 18 to 25, and it offered a combination of online courses, interactive seminars, and hands-on experience. Students were taught not just language, but also how to lead through communication, how to build global networks, and how to become social entrepreneurs who could drive change in their communities. The multilingual leadership program was a huge success, with thousands of young people from places like rural Nigeria, urban Brazil, and post-conflict Syria applying. Some students went on to start their own businesses, while others became activists, educators, and advocates for positive change. One graduate of the program, a young woman named Fatima from Jordan, launched a project to teach refugees in her camp how to use language to advocate for their rights. Her story went viral, inspiring others to take on leadership roles in their own communities. Anya's personal growth, reflecting on her journey. As Anya watched the world embrace Languasphere and the multilingual leadership program, she took some time to reflect on her personal journey. She remembered the shy girl she had once been, the girl who couldn't even speak English confidently. Now she was overseeing a global revolution in language education, shaping the future of communication and empowering people to reach their fullest potential. But Anya's journey had never been just about success. It had always been about impact. And every success, every milestone, was simply another step in the journey to create a more connected, more inclusive world. The United Nations Global Initiative. Anya's leadership. Anya's work didn't go unnoticed on the global stage. The United Nations recognized the potential of her Language for Change initiative, and they invited her to spearhead a new global education and language program that would aim to make language education a central pillar of sustainable development goals across the globe. Anya joined forces with world leaders, educational experts, and technologists to create a global roadmap for language education, focusing on equity and access. The initiative aimed to bring quality language education to every child, adult, and community worldwide, regardless of their socioeconomic background. The idea was to create a world where language wasn't a barrier to opportunity, but a key to building a more peaceful, prosperous, and equitable world. Anya spoke passionately at the launch of the program. The future is multilingual. It's about understanding, connection, and shared purpose. When we learn each other's languages, we unlock not just new ways of communicating, but new ways of thinking, collaborating, and building a better future. Her speech resonated with leaders and policymakers who committed to integrating language education into their national development plans. Anya's legacy, the world's new language of unity. As the years went on, Anya's work continued to touch lives in ways she had never imagined. Languasphere became a global symbol of how technology, education, and empathy could combine to create positive social change. Speaking in English is so easy became a universal truth. But it wasn't just about speaking one language. It was about the world learning to speak the language of change, the language of inclusivity, opportunity, and unity. Anya's legacy was not just in the millions of people she had helped learn English. It was in the thousands of voices that had found their power, their purpose, and their path through language. And as she looked to the future, Anya knew that this was just the beginning. The work of Language for Change had only just begun, and the possibilities were endless. The end. Or is it? Anya's story is far from over. There will always be new challenges, new opportunities, and new dreams to chase. As she continues to change the world through the power of language, one thing is certain: the world will never stop speaking. Of course, Let's continue Anya's journey and explore the future challenges and triumphs that await her as she takes the Language for Change movement even further into uncharted territories. The global landscape is shifting, and so too is the vision Anya has for the world. Speaking in English is so easy. Anya's next challenge, the language of technology. As Languasphere became more successful, Anya began to see another urgent trend emerging. Technology was evolving rapidly, and the future of global communication was no longer just about learning spoken languages. Artificial intelligence, coding, and digital literacy were becoming just as essential as learning English or Spanish. If we are to truly create a world where language is a tool for unity, Anya reflected, then we must prepare people to speak the new languages of the future, technology. She realized that for people to thrive in the future, they needed to understand coding, digital tools, and the language of innovation. And so she began thinking about how tech literacy could become a core part of the Language for Change mission. The language of technology, Anya's vision for the future. Anya decided to launch a new initiative called Tech Talks, a global platform designed to teach coding and digital literacy alongside traditional language learning. The goal was to combine human language with the language of computers, ensuring that young people from all backgrounds could have the skills they needed to thrive in the digital age. Tech Talks would offer interactive lessons on topics like blockchain technology, data analysis, coding languages like Python, and digital ethics. But the difference between this and other coding programs was that Anya wanted to ensure these lessons were accessible to everyone, from students in Silicon Valley to farmers in the mountains of Peru. She envisioned a global digital classroom, one where students could learn tech skills while also learning to speak the language of collaboration, helping to foster global teamwork and innovation. To kick off the program, Anya partnered with tech giants like Google, Microsoft, and IBM to provide free access to coding tools, mentorship from tech professionals, and a network of international innovators. The platform would be available in multiple languages, making tech education accessible to anyone, anywhere. The digital divide, overcoming access barriers. As Anya rolled out Tech Talks, one of the biggest challenges she faced was the digital divide, the gap between people who had access to technology and those who didn't. While many students in urban areas could easily access computers and the internet, rural communities, particularly in developing countries, often lacked the basic infrastructure needed to support digital education. Anya was determined to bridge this gap. We need to bring technology to people, not just bring people to technology, she thought. She worked with local organizations to distribute affordable solar-powered tablets and created partnerships with governments to improve internet access in underserved areas. She also worked on creating offline versions of the Tech Talks program so that people in areas with limited connectivity could still participate. In rural Kenya, for example, Anya helped launch a Tech Talks caravan, a fleet of buses equipped with solar-powered computers, high-speed internet, and teachers who traveled to the most isolated villages, giving people the opportunity to learn both tech skills and languages without having to leave their communities. From learners to innovators, empowering the next generation. One of the greatest successes of Tech Talks was how it empowered young people to use their new coding skills to create solutions for the challenges their communities faced. In the remote village of Vientiane, Laos, a group of teenagers who had completed the Tech Talks program used their knowledge of data analysis and app development to create a system that helped local farmers track weather patterns and predict the best times to plant their crops. "We've created something that can help our families," said Soka, a 17-year-old student from the village. "Before, we relied on old traditions to know when to plant, but now we can make better decisions with the data we collect." Another success story came from a young woman named Aisha, who completed the Tech Talks program in a refugee camp in Jordan. Aisha, who had always been passionate about design, used her new coding skills to create a platform that connected refugees with job opportunities in nearby cities. The app became an instant success, allowing people in refugee camps to find work and support their families. Anya couldn't help but smile when she heard these stories. This is exactly what I envisioned, she thought. The future wasn't just about learning languages, it was about giving people the tools to innovate, lead, and change the world. Anya's role in global policy, a voice for education and technology. As Anya's Tech Talks initiative gained momentum, she became a powerful advocate for the integration of tech education into global policy. In 2028, Anya was invited to speak at the United Nations General Assembly, where she called for governments worldwide to prioritize digital literacy as part of their national education programs. Her speech was passionate. The future belongs to those who can speak the language of technology. We must ensure that every young person, no matter where they are from or what their circumstances are, has the opportunity to learn the skills that will define the next generation. Technology is not a privilege, it is a right. Her words echoed throughout the assembly, inspiring leaders from around the world to commit to providing free digital literacy programs, especially in developing countries. As a result, many countries began allocating more resources toward building digital education infrastructure in rural and underserved areas. The future of language for change, the global classroom. Looking forward, Anya's mission to create a more connected world through language and technology was just beginning. As Languasphere, Tech Talks, and the multilingual leadership program continued to grow, Anya began to think even bigger. What if one day there could be a global classroom where students from all corners of the earth could learn together, transcending borders, cultures, and languages? A world where anyone, anywhere, can learn anything, together, Anya thought, her mind racing with possibilities. She began working on a new project called Global ED, an online education platform that would not only teach languages and technology, but also provide access to diverse subjects like math, science, history, and art, all with a focus on cross-cultural collaboration and global problem-solving. In Global Ed, students wouldn't just learn from textbooks, they would learn by working together on real-world problems, engaging in projects that addressed issues like climate change, poverty, and inequality. The goal was to create a community of global learners who could share ideas, resources, and solutions, empowering the next generation of leaders and innovators to tackle the world's biggest challenges. Ayanya's reflection, a legacy of change. As she sat in her office one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Anya reflected on how far she had come. It all started with a simple idea, she thought, to make English easier to speak. But now, it's so much bigger than that. Her journey had taken her from a shy girl who struggled with language to a global leader shaping the future of education, technology, and social change. Along the way, she had touched millions of lives, inspiring people to speak, learn, innovate, and lead. But Anya knew that the work was far from over. As the world continued to evolve, so too would the tools and methods used to connect people. The power of language, whether spoken or digital, would always be the key to unlocking a better, more connected future. The end. For now. Anya's story continues to unfold with new chapters, new challenges, and new opportunities waiting just around the corner. The next step in her journey might take her to space education, global entrepreneurship, or even AI-driven education systems. The possibilities are endless. But one thing is certain. Anya's mission to change the world through language and technology will keep pushing boundaries and transforming lives, one word at a time. Absolutely. Let's continue with Anya's evolving journey. as she steps into new frontiers, exploring even more ambitious initiatives that will reshape the way the world connects, learns, and collaborates. Speaking in English is so easy, Anya's next frontier, space and education. Anya's language for change movement had grown into a global phenomenon, but her mind never stopped seeking new ways to push the limits of what education could achieve. One evening, as she was reviewing proposals for the Global Ed project, a new idea sparked in her mind: space education. Anya had always been fascinated by the stars, the potential for human space exploration, and the idea of a universal language that could connect humans across planets. She wondered, what if the future of language wasn't just about communication on Earth? What if we could teach the next generation to communicate with people from other planets? The vision of space education, bridging Earth and beyond. Anya partnered with leading space organizations, including NASA, SpaceX, and ESA, European Space Agency, to launch a new initiative called Language Beyond Earth. The goal of this program was to lay the foundation for how future generations would communicate in space, emphasizing intercultural dialogue, technological literacy, and the universal potential of human language. Anya envisioned a global space education curriculum where students on Earth would not only learn languages and tech skills, but also study subjects like astronomy, physics, and space exploration. The idea was to inspire curiosity about the universe and prepare young minds for the technological innovations that would make space travel more accessible. In the future, communication in space will require not only knowledge of technology and science, but also empathy, collaboration, and the ability to adapt to new environments, Anya explained during a launch event for the initiative. Just as we learn to speak to each other on Earth, we will need to learn to speak to new cultures, new environments, and eventually, new worlds. Space schools. Preparing for a new era. To bring this vision to life, Anya envisioned space schools, educational hubs scattered across the globe where young people could explore space-related subjects, learn how to use advanced AI-powered learning tools, and even participate in simulated space missions. These schools would integrate virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, technologies, allowing students to experience simulated space missions, walking on Mars, navigating through asteroid fields, and interacting with simulated extraterrestrial environments. Students would also engage in interdisciplinary learning, bringing together language, science, engineering, and ethics in the context of space exploration. In space schools, students would learn how to speak the language of innovation, with an emphasis on problem-solving, creativity, and global collaboration, all essential skills for future space travelers. One of the first space schools was built in the highlands of Peru, where students learned not only about the solar system, but also about earthly challenges like climate change and sustainable living. The curriculum was designed to show how space exploration could inform solutions for the Earth's most pressing problems. Language and AI, creating a universal translator. As Ayanya continued to expand the boundaries of language education, she recognized another powerful opportunity on the horizon: AI-powered language translation. The rise of artificial intelligence was rapidly transforming the way people communicated across cultures, but Anya had a bold idea. What if there could be a universal translator, an AI system that could understand and translate all human languages in real time? Her team began working with top AI researchers and linguists to develop an advanced translation system capable of real-time speech translation. The ultimate goal was to make language barriers a thing of the past, allowing people from different countries, backgrounds, and cultures to converse freely, without worrying about misunderstandings or misinterpretations. Imagine a world where a scientist in Tokyo could collaborate with an artist in Brazil, or a doctor in Kenya could discuss treatment options with a researcher in Germany without the need for a translator or special training. Anya believed that such an AI system would open up unprecedented opportunities for global cooperation, particularly in fields like healthcare, technology, and sustainability. Breaking cultural barriers, the power of empathy through language. With the development of AI translation tools, Anya was not only focusing on eliminating language barriers, but also on ensuring that the empathy behind communication remained intact. She knew that speaking another person's language wasn't just about words, it was about understanding their emotions, culture, and perspective. Anya introduced the concept of cultural empathy into her Language for Change curriculum. In her new global classroom platform, students weren't just learning languages, they were learning how to approach conversations with respect, understanding, and a commitment to shared goals. Language isn't just a means of communication, it's a bridge to understanding, Anya often said. When we understand each other's words, we can start to understand each other's hearts. That's where true change begins. Her vision of cultural empathy became a core principle of her educational initiatives. She encouraged people to embrace diversity, not just in language but in perspective, experience, and values. The global digital revolution, Anya's role in digital citizenship. In parallel with the development of Tech Talks and Language Beyond Earth, Anya became a champion for digital citizenship. As the world became more connected through the internet and technology, it was vital that people learn to use these tools responsibly and ethically. Anya initiated a global campaign called Digital You, aimed at educating young people about the ethical use of technology, online safety, privacy, and the importance of being responsible, positive digital citizens. This program integrated media literacy with lessons on how to navigate social media, debunk misinformation, and use digital platforms for good. The Digital U initiative spread rapidly across schools and universities worldwide, teaching students how to become leaders and advocates for positive change in the digital world. Anya's vision, the future of human communication. As Anya's initiatives continued to unfold, one thing was clear. Language was more than just words on a page or sounds in the air. It was a living, breathing force that shaped how people connected, understood, and collaborated. And in this increasingly digital and interconnected world, Anya's vision of creating a more connected, empathetic, and innovative global community was taking shape in ways she had only dreamed of. Her mission was evolving, no longer just focused on teaching English or breaking down language barriers, but on empowering individuals to become leaders of Chan. Citizens of the digital world and pioneers of the future. Whether in a space school on Earth, coding the next breakthrough in technology, or learning to communicate with the stars, Anya's work was about shaping the future of communication. One word, one conversation, and one person at a time. The end, or a new beginning? Anya's journey is far from over. She's taken the first steps into the unknown, pushing boundaries and making connections that span not only across Earth's continents, but into space itself. With each new initiative, she continues to change the world, bridging divides, building understanding, and creating opportunities for the next generation of innovators, leaders, and thinkers. The next chapter of her story is unfolding now. As she continues to lead the charge in transforming education, language, and technology, who knows where her journey will take her next? One thing is certain, the future is brighter, more connected, and more innovative than ever before.